Hello. We're going to wrap this up. Part 5 of developmental psychology. We're going to talk about adulthood, middle of your life, end of your life, and kind of wrap things up. Not a lot of vocabulary terms here in this last section, but definitely some general important ideas that we can go over. Now, as you may or may not know, as you age, your physical ability decreases at a gradually or accelerating rate. So this is a graph of a baseball player, average baseball player. So, and their batting average. Batting average is how often they get a hit versus how many times they get out. Okay, so 300 would mean that they get a hit 30% of the time. So as you age, the number of years that you've been playing, all right, with 18 to 20 years. So right, most baseball players start around 22, somewhere in there, play professional baseball. So by the time we're talking here, 20 years old, these guys are in their mid 40s, okay? Or early 40s. Some people start at like 18, so they might be like 40. But anyhow, so after a couple of years, your average batting average is about 300. So and in baseball, this is a pretty good batting average. It tends to go down, you see. After about 7 years of playing, you're about your highest, and then boom, look at this. Once you get to about 16 years here, you just tank. It goes way down. Um, this is the same case with, this is a very famous baseball player here. This is Willie Mays, as you can see, one of the greatest baseball players of all time. And his average, we know, if you look at the numbers here, is considerably higher than everybody else's. But same thing, look at this. Uh, Here's 15 years, just the average right here, way lower than he spent the rest of his career. So between 16 and 20 years, we're looking at late 30s, early 40s here, and you just start tanking. So physically, when you start getting in those ages, you just physically start to go down. You get your muscles start to deteriorate, your muscle quickness, your hand-eye coordination, everything starts to go down. Does that mean that you can't maintain awesome health into late life? No. It just means that you're not at the top of your game anymore. If you look at like records for the Olympics for running and Olympic sports, you'll see that like a lot of the same. You look at 20-year olds who are running a mile, and you're gonna have records, in the 3 minutes and uh, 40-ish seconds range. All right, 30-year-olds are going to be about the same. You're going to have 3 minutes and 40-ish seconds. 40-year-olds, now we're looking at 3 minutes and 50 seconds. I'm making some of these numbers up here to give you a point. 50-year-olds, you might be 3:55 to closer to 4 minutes, and these are world-class times, right? These are the best. You jump up to 60. This is probably closer to 4 minutes at 50. You jump to 60, now we're looking at like 4:20. You go to 70, and now we're looking at probably faster than 5. So we're looking at probably 4:40, 4:45 or something is the fastest to 5 minutes. And so things just go down whoosh, really quickly. This age, 20s and 30s, you're good. Once you get to 20s, 30s, things start to go downhill as far as your physical abilities. Women during this time go through menopause. Menopause is when they stop having their period, and it's just the end of their reproductive capacity. As you change later in life, your senses go down. Kind of a story here. It goes down like you get to, like I said, that 70-year-old mark, right? Woo! Nosedive, 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 right? So this is vision, right? You get to about your late 60s and your vision just tanks on average, right? Stays pretty good. As you age, gets a little bit worse and worse, but it tends to tank. Smelling, again, you're all the way up until you're about 70, and then it tends to go way down. It stays pretty consistent. Um, Identifying spoken word. I guess, this one's a little bit interesting. It gets higher as you're about 30. This is because you've got a bigger body of knowledge to reflect back on or draw upon to understand what somebody's trying to say. And then again, you get towards the late 60s and it starts to go down. you're driving, right? This is always an interesting and kind of a sensitive topic if you've got older family members. Um, Accidents, right? You're 50, you tend to have lower accidents, right? Lower, 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 and then all of a sudden, boom, accidents go way up. 70, look at this. You get 70, and you're, on average, not very safe because the number of accidents you go up uh, goes way, way, way up. So, interesting things. Your senses are just declining big time as you age. Also, cognitively, here's a graph that lists your risks of dementia, right, which is basically you're just losing a lot of your neural connections and you're not able to think or respond correctly, and you're kind of losing a little bit of touch with reality. Um, Again, it kind of goes, your percentage of people with dementia goes up as you get to 70, once you get to 80, and then boom, your risk of dementia goes way up from 80 on, right? Your risk of dementia rapidly increases once you're 80. So your cognitive functions, a little bit better than your physical functions, tend to stay pretty well. But once you get in your late 60s, early 70s, then 80s, boom, it shoots up there. Um, your ability to recall names goes way down as you age. And no, what's interesting is the number of words recognized, if you were asked to recognize words, tends to stay about the same, if not increase, as you age, which is interesting, right? But again, this graph here stops at 60. We're looking at these other ones that are past 60, but it's kind of interesting. Recalled names or recalled words goes down. So are you able to pick it out? No, but are you able to recall it or recognize it? Yeah, probably the reason why you're able to recognize it is because you have all this, again, like I said, you have this body of knowledge in your brain, and you're able to make a connection. Oh, yeah, 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 that connected, and you recognize the word, but you're not able to pick it out because you got so much stuff going on up there. One thing that when we study older individuals or across the lifespan, we use two types of research methods, and we talked about this in the research methods unit. Is we use cross-sectional and longitudinal, but I wanted to go over them again because there's kind of an interesting results here. Cross-sectional, if you'll recall, is when you take a snapshot asking the same questions or looking at the same data across multiple age groups. So you might look at somebody who's 20, 40, 60, and 80. Right? You're looking at different people in this group, in this group, in this group, and in this group, but you're asking all the same questions all at once. All right, so you can do one study and ask. This is good because you get a wide range of data. You can get a bunch of data all at once. It's relatively quick, and you'll have a good amount of data. A longitudinal study is where you would take this 20-year-old and then you'd retest the same person, maybe when he's 40. Probably much more intermittently between that, but using the same numbers here. And then again when he's 60. And then again when he's 80, right? Problem with this is it's very long. Look, 60 years to get some results here, right? When you got all the results here in one study, this one's taking me 60 years to get those same results. Positive of this is that this, unlike this, is less likely due to variance, right? So it's less likely due to just chance or variance in the population because you're comparing this 4-year-old against yourself. This person and this 4-year-old is the same exact person as this 20-year-old was. So you're comparing the same thing. This 40-year-old is not the same person as this 20-year-old. This 4-year-old lived in a different time when he was 20, right? When he was growing up, different things were going on in the world, in society. And so that can have an influence. As you see here, reasoning ability score, this has been tested both ways with a cross-sectional study and a longitudinal study, and they give different results, which is rather interesting, right? The cross-sectional studies show that as you age, your reasoning ability goes down. However, a longitudinal study, or some longitudinal studies don't show that it doesn't go down quite as badly at all. In fact, it kind of goes up a little bit towards your 60s before it starts to gradually go down, right? So this is asking the same question. One of them is looking at cross-sectional studies, where you look at all these things all at once. and one of them is looking at longitudinal studies where you're watching the same person asking them questions over and over again and getting different results. And so it shows you that the two types aren't always compatible, and cross-sectional studies usually have a much greater degree of variance because of you're comparing different people at different ages and they have different histories. When we're talking kind of about this reasoning ability, it leads us kind of into this idea of intelligence. As you age, do you get more intelligent or less intelligent? Well, it's kind of two answers. There's two types of intelligence called crystallized and fluid intelligence. Crystallized is your total body of knowledge, right? And this, as you age, tends to go up. You get older, this tends to go up because you learn more stuff. You get smarter, you're wiser. This is just, total information. You have more experiences. Everything's more. Fluid intelligence is your ability to basically, to put it real bluntly, to solve problems or to do problem solving. Kind of thinking on your feet. Think on feet. This tends to go down as you age. Fluid intelligence tends to go down. Your ability to just think real quickly, solve problems, think abstractly tends to go down. So two types of intelligence, important. One goes up as you age. Crystallized, think of a crystal, like a crystal, right, can grow bigger and bigger as it gets older and older. And fluid intelligence changes as you age. Another vocabulary term that we need to be aware of is the social clock. Social clock changes, between different generations of social clock. Is when is it appropriate to do certain things. Like when is it appropriate to get married? When should you have gotten married, right? People in the early 1900s were getting married, much closer to 18. And people today, the average age to get married, is much closer to 30 actually. And so this has changed. The social clock has changed. When is it acceptable to do certain things? When is it acceptable? How long is it acceptable for a kid to live at home, right? The social clock right now is changing big time in the Western society where it's becoming more and more normal for a 27-year-old to be living at home with his parents. Whereas 50 years ago, even 40 years ago, maybe even 30 years ago, that was unheard of. You wouldn't have that. You'd be thought of as silly to be living with your parents at 27. Today, it's very common, especially with this current economy, to have that. After somebody graduates from college, they go back home and live with their parents for a while. Now, how do you age successfully, right? There's a combination of things that leads to this successful aging. One, you got to have the goods, your biology, right? Do you have genes that are going to keep you healthy? Were you just born? Did you win the lottery? Do you have good genes? Did you eat well? Are you eating well? Is your biologically, are you the best you can be, right? You can't do anything about the genes, but you can do something about this nutrition part, right? That's what the doctors always tell you. Psychological, right? How do you approach life? Do you have an optimistic outlook? Are you physically active? You add these two things together, and this is going to help lead to a successful life. And then finally, these social, cultural issues. Do you have a supportive family? If you don't have somebody to love or somebody that loves you, it's much more difficult to age successfully. You need people that support you. Do you have meaningful things to do? This is why senior centers are important and popular. Gives seniors things to do. Gives seniors people to support them, to have friends with, right? Senior centers and these later in life things like playing bingo on a Sunday night, this is filling this box right here, big time, so that they can age successfully, right? So this one, you got to combine all three of these things: your psychological influence, your biological influence, and your social cultural influence, and see how successfully you're going to age. Here's just an interesting graph, I think, of your life satisfaction as you age, right? One of the two people is going to face if you're married is death of your spouse. Well, kind of you rebound from that. It goes down, the point where it starts to go down is the person's starting to lose their health, right? They're becoming less and less healthy, and they're starting to lose. Your life satisfaction goes down. They die, And then slowly but surely, your satisfaction with life picks up, picks up, picks up. By the time you're 6 years out, 6 years out from the death of your spouse, you nearly have as high as life satisfaction as you had with them. It's not the same, but you've learned to live without them and find fulfillment in life. And then it pretty much levels out the rest of your life. Finally, we're going to talk about Kübler-Ross's stages of dying. These aren't really shown to be super useful in that everybody's not shown to go through these stages. They're not shown to, it's not super tested where it's actually not tested very well at all. And so these are popular, but again, kind of like Erickson, they're not used. They're like the gold standard, but everybody knows about them, and so we go over them in here. So stage 1 is denial. You have cancer, right? So let's use somebody who has cancer. This is generally the stages that you would think that they would go through. 1, you have denial. No, it can't be happening to me. I'm too young for this. I've eaten too healthy. I'm too. This is not happening to me, right? So they deny. They go through denial. Then they get pissed off. They get angry. Why God? Why me? Why is this happening? Why I shouldn't have this? I've got a family. I've got kids. I don't want to die yet. I'm not ready, and they get angry. Then we jump to the bargaining stage. If you just get me through this, God, I will. Usually we're bargaining with God, right? If you just get me through this, I will devote my life to you. Or you just get me through this, and I'll be nicer to my children, and I will, spend more time. I'll quit my job, whatever. After they bargain and realize that they didn't get an answer, they're depressed. So they're really down. Okay, there's nothing I can do. They've been mad. They've tried to bargain. Now they're depressed. After they kind of get out of their depression, they finally learn to accept it. And they accept where they're at, and they can fulfill their life. So again, this Kübler-Ross stages of dying, very popular, well-known stages. Probably not going to be on the AP exam because it's not something that's super tested, but it could be. And finally, I just want to take a quick look back at what we've talked about this unit, some important stages, and comparing them. Kohlberg, right, had 3 stages of moral development. He had pre-conventional, conventional, and post-conventional. Actually, 3 areas, and each one had 2 stages in it, right? And so as you age, this tends to happen. So look what conventional tends to happen right here, right around 10, right around you're going to start getting into puberty. Or should I say, right, you guys are probably right here. Excuse me. Post-conventional happens somewhere out here, right? You're usually an adult when you start thinking like this. Can teenagers have post-conventional morality? Of course. But it's, normally seen later in life. Then you got Erik Erikson, right? Trust, autonomy, initiative, these first 3 stages, competence, and then as identity by the time, so you've gone through 5 stages by the time you're in your puberty, and then finally your 20s, you're looking for intimacy. Middle of your life, you're looking, am I doing something productive for society? Is this worth it? And then finally, towards the end of your life, did I live a good life? Did I live a life that's worth something? And then Jean Piaget, his levels of cognitive development, right? Sensory motor was you experience the world through your senses. Pre-operational, you tend to think about things, but you use intuition to think about them. You don't really think logically about things. Concrete operational, you start to logically reason things out. And then finally, formal operational, which some people never actually get to, but or some people reach before others, is being able to think abstractly about topics. So that was a quick review of some major stages that we looked at, and that's it for developmental psychology. Thanks.